Hey, this is Joe with Home Studio Corner. We're going to talk about parallel processing today and how it could be a game changer for you. It's a little more advanced, but boy, once you start to experience the goodness, you'll have goosebumps all over the place. Real quickly though, if you don't already have my mixing guide, you like the way that I mix, you like the way my mixes sound, and you'd like to replicate my process and see how it works for you, I've written a free guide that walks you through that 5-step process. You can have it for free. Go to 5stepmix.com and download that. Okay, so what is parallel processing? It sounds nerdy, and it kind of is. Let's imagine, we'll use drums as an example, but I've actually got some examples today of guitars and vocals, so stick around for that. But let's imagine we've got a drum bus. So all of our drums are coming down this vertical line here, okay? We can do things to that bus, right? We can add EQ, compression, whatever. But parallel processing says we have this bus, this aux, this channel, this kind of route for the audio, and then we duplicate it over here. So now we have two faders, and then we can put different plugins on each. And the idea is you can sometimes get the best of both worlds by combining them. So the most classic example is called parallel compression, where you may have one bus with no compression and a duplicate of it with compression, and you combine those two together. But that's not the only place where parallel processing can be really, really handy. I'm going to touch on a couple of those today to get you started. First, let's use the classic example of drums. Full disclosure, I shot this portion of the video already, and it was amazing. It made my face go like this. But then I realized I hadn't pressed record, so we have to do it again. So here is a drum mix with nothing on the drum bus. So pretty basic drum mix. I'm going to let you hear it to familiarize yourself with it. Then we're going to add a compressor. It's a big honking 24-inch kick drum, pretty thick snare drum, pretty straightforward. Sounds a lot like I want to sing, but I'm not. That's not this song. So let's say we want to add some compression to that, and we're just like, you know what? I'm in an aggressive mood. I'm going to set some really aggressive compressor settings on this. So we go with like a 4-to-1 ratio, pretty fast attack and release. Set the threshold so it's really hammering it, and then set the makeup gain to make up for all the volume that we've lost, and we end up with this. Right, it's just over the top, majorly compressed. This by itself, I would not accept in a mix, typically speaking. I'm sure there's some kind of wonky out there mixes where this would be cool, but generally speaking, this is too much compression. You can hear the compressor working, right? It's going, the kick's going boom, and the snare's going goosh, quack, like it has this. You can hear the front end of the waveform getting just mangled to shreds. But the back end of each hit has a cool sound to it, right? It's that kind of modern sort of a sound that we like with compressors. Well, what if we could combine the dry signal, which sounds cool, with the compressed signal, which has some coolness to it but doesn't work just by itself? Well, we can. Now, to be fair, Studio One in its stock compressor actually has a mix knob, so you can just do it right here. That's essentially parallel processing, but I'm going to show you a little more traditional way of having it in two separate paths. Actually, it's not the most traditional because it's a unique thing to Studio One. So when I was a Pro Tools guy, if I wanted to do this parallel processing, I would take all my drums and send them to a second bus. So I'd have two drum buses, one with and one without compression. Studio One has this thing called the splitter tool. If I click on this little family tree button here, it opens this up, and I can add a splitter, which basically creates two channels for me now. So now the drums are running through two basically faders instead of one. And if I drag the compressor to this right side, this isn't panned left and right, this is just equal split left and right. The signal now goes through here, and it also goes through here, and I hear both. We can test that out by muting the right side, so we just hear the dry drums. And now we mute the left side, so we just hear compression. But what does it sound like together? I have to keep shooting this video, but I want to just kind of sit here and make a stank face to that all day. Best of both worlds. We get the direct kind of dynamic of just a dry drum kit where the kick and snare just punch you in the face, which is lovely. But it lacks a little bit of that snap and that modern compressed sound that we want. We can get that with the compressor. But combine those together and it is just heavenly. Now I'm going to turn the compressor off, just so there's a little bit of volume difference thing happening in the way the splitter works. So I'm just going to activate and deactivate the compressor so you can hear what it's actually doing. Just glorious. Now, if you've never done this before, you can probably already imagine you could add all kinds of plugins on either side, and you can quickly ruin everything that way. If you've never done it before, just do it like this. Just put one compressor and then nothing on the other one, and just get used to that. Spend some time with that, and you can eventually get crazy with it. I've found, generally speaking, if I start to get crazy, these crazy ideas of all the things I can add, it typically sounds better when I remove the plugins. So go simple and see what you think about it. All right, I'm breaking out the new baritone guitar for this one to show you how parallel processing isn't just for drums. They don't get to have all the fun. Guitarists can use this as well. So here's Studio One, again, a new session. And first I want to play for you, this is just the stock amp modeler inside of Studio One with a little bit of slapback delay. So this is this top one here, which is kind of a just Fender amp clean sound. Right, just very clean, spanky, got a little bit of grit to it, but it's just a nice clean tone. And then if I turn this off and I come over here to this next channel, this one is this Marshall-ish sound, obviously going to be more aggressive. Just makes you make a stank face. Now, in light of our conversation thus far, what are the similarities and differences between these two amps? Well, the second one has a lot of overdrive, a lot of distortion, a lot of what I know like British folks call, it seems like they do, at least the guys on That Pedal Show call compression. So overdrive, amp distortion is a type of compression. It's doing a lot of the same things compression does, where it squashes the dynamic range, raises the quiet parts, turns down the loud parts, rounds off the edges. That's kind of what this second amp is doing. The first one doesn't do it nearly as much, so all those transients pop through. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it'd be nice to have both. The pokey, spiky transients of like a Fender amp that goes like this, right, with the grit and the aggressiveness of the Marshall, which is this. Now, I'm not saying they always need to be together, but so historically, if you're a guitar player and you wanted to run through two amps at the same time, it's a bit of a hassle. I've done it, and unless you have good equipment that helps with all the ground loops that happen when you connect two amps to the same guitar, it's a pain. It's typically not worth doing. Digital makes it really easy. I can literally, just in case you're wondering, I've got my guitar plugged into the input one, and I've got just the same input on both of these. So if I turn them both on at the same time, we're going to hear the Fender and the Marshall playing together in just wonderful gloriousness. I'm having a lot of fun today. So you hear how on the driven, like power chordy stuff, you hear the cleanness a little bit, but mostly the kind of the aggressive stuff comes through. But then like up here, that stuff all gets you can hear the spikiness of the clean amp come through as well. And so then after hearing that, going back to either one sounds Not lame, but just not as fun. That one's way compressed, the other one's way too clean, but together... that was glorious. Okay, final example, vocals. Now you can do the parallel compression thing on vocals, but I like to just mangle vocals with a compressor. I've never really met a vocal that didn't love to just be squashed. But what if we were to use some distortion in the parallel chain? Similar to kind of what we did with the guitars. So here is the mixed vocal in this song.
Let out the line, stumbling apart.
A little sibilant, but anyway. So let's put a splitter in here. And let's put all the plugins on one side. So let's put the main plugins on the one side. So this is just a channel strip, EQ, de-esser. And then on the other side, let's mute that one side for just a moment. And let's add red light distortion, which is my favorite, over here. And then let's quickly just dial in a nasty sound on this vocal.
Let out the line, stumbling apart, distracted by what was. Strive to be strong.
So now, this is a fun thing, just like extra tip about things like distortions. It's too much low end, but I like the way the low end causes the compressor or the distortion to react. So instead of rolling off the low frequencies here, which will make the distortion sound wimpier,
let out the line.
Right? I want to use an EQ after it. And this EQ will just be applied to the distorted side, but adding an EQ here and just kind of rolling off the low end lets it be aggressively distorted, but then I can remove that low end so it's not muddying things up.
Let out the line, stumbling apart, distracted by what was.
So now it's gritty, it's disgusting, I kind of love it. Let's go back and take a look at how we have things set up. So now let's start with just the vocal without the distortion, then let's add it in, see what it does.
Let out the line, stumbling apart, distracted by what was.
Just add some grittiness and awesomeness to it. We could go even more crazy with like a fuzz circuit or something.
Let out the line, stumbling apart, distracted by what was.
Can be a great way to maybe add this just on choruses or just on certain words or sections of the song, but it adds some grit to the vocal. But if we did this to the entire vocal, a lot of times that takes away too much clarity. So we lose that in favor of this kind of vibe. So this gives us the best of both worlds. We have a nice clear vocal coming through untouched, then a distorted vocal layered on top, and it's just wonderful. Now, these are only like 3 out of probably thousands of ways to use parallel processing. Go try it on some stuff in your studio. I think you'll discover you have a whole new world of sounds available to you without adding a new plugin. This is just new ways to treat your existing plugin library. It makes me really excited. If you'd like a copy of my free 5-step mix guide, don't forget to grab that. Go to 5stepmix.com. Otherwise, thanks for watching. See ya.